Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. Always love getting together with different people and learning their experiences through their occupation and their life. And this gentleman learned so much about him in the world of school psychology. You know, I think we underestimate the importance of people like him in that role. Kids are going through so much. I mean, I even think back to when I was in elementary school. Guess what? I had a school psychologist. That was a long time ago. I'm surprised I even had him back then. I could even tell you the exercise that I did because I was having challenges with my parents getting divorced back then and more. And when I think back, that school psychologist really helped me through, as this one has done for many, as a school psychologist in the Reed Union School District in California. This is Good Advice Helps with Dr. Allan Gold, who is back with us on the program. How are you doing today?
Okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm well. I totally forgot about that journey with that psychologist, but I have to tell you, and that's probably fourth grade, maybe third grade. I could draw a diagram of that elementary school that was the Clinton Avenue Elementary School and where the psychologist's office was located and what they had me do. I love drawing and cartoons, and I could tell you exactly what I drew. Can't remember all the dialogue, but it's so crystal clear when I think back to it and how much it made a difference. Do you hear that from people later in life that you helped?
Yes, that's very interesting you mentioned that because I would get thank you notes, from parents, but then if I would meet a parent or a kid, more grown up, they would tell me how much they appreciated the help that I gave them. I mean, sometimes they would even say things that I said to them that I didn't even remember what I said. But, kids in middle school, which was the last grade of the ones that I worked with, they're not very good at expressing themselves, at that point in life. But when they have a few more years, like if they're in high school or graduated from high school, they can really reflect on their past and what I was able to do to help them get through. And it was always very rewarding to hear those things because I didn't expect it when they graduated from middle school, but it was, but those thank you notes, a little thank you posted or a thank you note.
Sure.
I would get, gifts at Christmas time and the end of the school year, candy and things like that, which of course I loved. But it was always the notes that meant the most to me.
I don't remember that school psychologist, but I do remember a couple of doors down was my art teacher, Mr. Nielsen. And he was empathetic, but at the same time, he had more of a pull up your pants, but and be a big boy, that kind of. But I always remember one mantra he would have on the blackboard. Yes, we used chalk back then, and yes. I'll never forget it. Today is the first day of the rest of your life.
Yeah,
and that these are the things we remember. There's a lot we can remember when we're intentional about it, and those memories come back. You have resonated with many in the times we've gotten together, and I've got some emails I would love to get your feedback on, if we could read some from listeners.
Sure, absolutely.
And by the way, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com is the best way to reach us. You can keep it anonymous if you'd like to. Rafer Hernandez in Phoenix, Arizona has a question for you. Says that he's a junior in high school and having a therapist has made a major impact on his life. All right, there you go. He says, I need to pick a major and wondered if a therapist is like a school psychologist.
Okay, very good question. If he's interested in either one, certainly psychology would be an excellent major for him. You said he's a junior in high school?
Yep.
Yes. So the school psychologist job is, I always looked at it as sort of a Renaissance person because there's lots of different components to it, some of which is therapy. counseling, group counseling, individual counseling, plus the other aspects of the school psychology career, which is consultation with parents and teachers and administrators, certainly assessing kids for learning disabilities and emotional disorders, autism, ADHD. So there's the whole assessment piece, which is a little bit different than therapy, or a lot different than therapy, actually. But as far as being a therapist, the differences, I would say, are if one is only a counselor, only a private therapist, their interaction with individuals may be longer and deeper.
Mm.
So the when somebody's making a decision about what career in psychology to pursue, if they really prefer to have an in-depth relationship, not that you can't have that with students, but as a school psychologist, you are subject to many students needing time with you. So yes, you need to get to know the student reasonably well, but once things are somewhat corrected, then you don't see them every week like a therapist does. But you're there to help. I mean, the overall service you're providing, whether a therapist or a school psychologist, it's a helping profession. You're helping, but how you do it may be very different. If somebody really wants to work with very troubled children or adults, for that matter, they may need extended time with weekly therapy. Now, in my job, if a kid had some pretty significant problems, there were kids I would meet with weekly, and if it wasn't possible to help them improve, then I would recommend outside therapy. But another part of being a therapist is one's own ability to work pretty independently and alone. People ask me all the time, why don't you open a private practice? And part of what I would respond, and I would say, I love working as a school psychologist, as a team member. I mean, people look to me for whatever sage advice I could give, but it was a team. We were all working together, whether it's parents or teachers or administrators or me, to help kids deal with whatever issues they had, whether it's academic or psychological, emotional. But a therapist has more control over how many kids they see or how many clients they see, but they're also working much more independently. And then, quite practically, they have to deal with the business aspect of it, publicity and
Right.
all the,
Potentially insurance, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like you're reading my mind, because I wanted to ask you, and then you kind of went down that road. With a school psychologist, there are many other players in the mix. You have teachers, you have administrators. How often did you get involved with them when it came to students in general, or maybe one in particular having challenges? Was that kind of a regular thing where you all got together to discuss things?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my schools, we had when a teacher wanted to refer a child, we had weekly meetings, which included the principal, special education teacher, a teacher from every grade level, and we discussed and the teacher who was concerned about the child would meet with us. It was during lunchtime, and we'd had like a 45-minute discussion and figure out, okay, what's the reasonable path? Here are some interventions that we could do. We should contact the parents, yes, bring them in for a student study team meeting, which is kind of the first step. If it sounded like, yeah, this is a kid that needs to be assessed for a learning disability or another for special education, then we would pursue that. But it was definitely teamwork where we got all the information that we could about the child and then figure out what is the next appropriate step. So yes, I worked with teachers all the time. If they ever had a kid they were concerned about, I'd have to talk to them and see what they were doing to deal with the issue, if it made sense. And then sometimes if it was behavioral issues, certainly the administrators would get involved. And then eventually, and not very long, we would involve the parents too.
And there's the good, the plus and the minuses in both, where, as you said, with somebody who private practices therapy, let's say for teens or children, you can really dictate how many cases you want to do. You have to deal with insurance, and there's that. But then on the school side, you never know how many kids you're going to talk to in a day. I would imagine it just depends on the day and who needs what. But then you're also, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but you also have the umbrella of it's the state. So like, deciding what type of tests a child might need. Then there's I forget all the letters, the AEP or, the different What is it again?
IEP.
Thank you. That has to come into play. Then sometimes when it gets to certain levels, there needs to be I don't want to call it a hearing, but, a decision that needs to be collectively made, whether we as a school district are going to go down this route for this particular student, whether it's homeschooling, whatever it might be. So there's a lot involved there that you have to do as a school psychologist.
Yeah. So, the private therapist has more control over, their number of clients, their work hours, and all of that sort of thing. That's the one, I don't want to say disadvantage of being a school psychologist, but just as you said, you never know how many kids are going to be, you're going to need to deal with every day.
Right.
And, and if there's any kind of larger crisis, if there's violence on the campus or something horrible like a shooting, then, you've got to deal with that. But on the other hand, the fact that you are a team is very positive. So if somebody really likes working independently and doesn't feel that they need the teamwork and wants to have control over their workload, then I would suggest maybe go the private therapy route. If they really like being a team and sharing ideas, I mean, I always felt it was a benefit, to talk over ideas with, or, situations with people, and just the brainstorming often gave me an idea that I might not have thought about all by myself. So,
you brought up something very impactful that I think a lot of us forget. When something happens, so let's say it's that's a worldwide situation where there can be some uncertainty for students, or like you said, a school situation. I'm going to be very transparent here. When I first started my radio career, I was involved in a school shooting.
Yeah.
And it was a hostage ordeal where a substitute teacher went off the rails, if you will, and walked into the school with fatigues on, automatic weapons, clips, everything, shot an administrator, shot a student, took them hostage, and then called me out, and I had to read his stuff on the radio. And it lasted for 10 hours.
oh my gosh.
And I was just a kid. I just started doing radio, but I was lucky to get a job at a major station, and I was doing news and public service. Um, the police would hand me a piece of paper and say, "You need to read this. Don't mess it up." And it was that basically, he would do a dedication to his dog, dedication to his brother, his epistle to the world. Um, the people shot survived. As I read those things, he would let others go, and eventually he let everybody go. And 8:43 at night, he requested the song "Fooling Yourself" by Styx, and the lyrics go, "Just take your best shot and don't blow it, don't blow it." And that's where he ended his life. He shot himself.
Oh, geez. Oh, my God.
But talk about the impact of school psychologists. If you Google it, there's some articles out there in the Times where these students talked about their journey, and they do mention about the school psychologist walking them through it and getting them back on track. That's where it's go time for somebody like yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And even worldwide events, even 9/11, my gosh,
Oh, I know. I was just going to say 9/11, I know you were back east, I was in California, and not that many people were affected by it. But I remember watching it on TV that morning and then discussing with the superintendent how we were going to handle this,
Yeah.
And there were even kids who knew people back, not very many, maybe one or two who had people back east, so yeah, but you have to think about those things.
Look at that through the eyes of a kid. Even in California, everybody's in kind of freak mode, wondering what's going to happen next. Is it going to affect us? They're hearing their parents. They're hearing media messages. How does a child deal with that? They talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just talking about it helps,
Yeah. Can we go to another email?
Yeah, I hope that addressed the question.
It really did, and it gave both sides of it. Private practice, working with the school. It depends on what fits you best.
Right.
This one is from Alicia. She's in Alexandria, Virginia, and not a career question, although we have a few in a moment. But she says, "My son is 11 and having anxiety about us moving to another town in a few months. I wanted to do it before school started, but it wasn't possible. Can you offer any advice to make this easier on him?"
Oh boy, that's a real challenge, and particularly for an 11-year-old. If people move when the kids are 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 even, it's not so hard. But for an 11-year-old, it's very challenging. One thing I would ask, is this a socially adept young person? Because and have they ever moved before? My guess is that they haven't. And it's really hard. By the one good thing is that with electronics these days, kids can stay in contact with their old friends. It depends again how far away the new place is. The more that they can prepare. You said a little boy?
Yeah, son is 11.
Son, yeah. Like take him to the new house, introduce him to the new school. See if the school can set up, if they have any way, because that's one thing we did. If there were a new student to a school, we'd try to set them up with a new friend to welcome them to the new school. A lot depends on this child's experience. If the kid went to summer camp and had to meet new kids, that's helpful. If they ever moved before, that would be helpful too.
Can I jump in here? Because this is where your expertise comes in. We take it for granted. Kids don't know how to meet other kids.
Yeah.
So now you go to that new school. Now what do? I'm sitting in the lunchroom by myself. I'm walking on the, during activity period on the playground. They don't have those skills on how to meet somebody else. And we forget
some
about
kids
that.
do and some kids don't.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's even harder now. Like I would talk to kids, what how do you think you would get to know somebody else? What questions could you ask them? Like everything from do you have any pets? What's your favorite color? What do you like? What's your favorite video game?
Mm,
Just asking a bunch of questions. And it really depends. Now, if this little boy is very shy and it sounds like he's anxious, he
mm,
may need some outside counseling or counseling in the current school. It would be really good if the parents could make a connection with like a school psychologist in the new school. Hey, John, it's really great
mm.
to welcome you to our school. I'm here to talk to you and to so just making that connection,
Sure.
so a lot of it depends on the kid's personality. Some kid, like I just went, I had a former student and his little brother. They were in fourth grade and sixth grade and moved to Australia. And actually, I ended up doing Zoom meetings with the older one. I had known him since fourth grade, and he left at the in the middle of sixth grade, and and we talked a lot about it. And so this kid's probably going to
Wow.
be in sixth grade if he's 11 years old. And hopefully he can talk about the difficulties. Now, he may miss his old friends. If he had old friends, that's super important to maintain that contact. If the new place is close enough, they could schedule, play dates like once a month, going back there
Sure.
inviting the friends. But if they're, 1,000 miles away or
But you
something,
know what? In reading in what his mom says, she says moving to another town. So I would think that she would have said, we're moving to another state, another
yeah,
town, could be X amount of minutes or an hour away, whatever it might be.
yeah,
So maybe there's still a connection to his friends. And like you said, FaceTime video and all of that. I love, love, love what you said in terms of connecting with the school psychologist at the new school,
yeah.
because even as an adult, it's all about fear, right? It's the
Oh,
fear of
yeah.
the unknown,
Oh,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
right? So this might make him feel more welcome, a little easier with the whole situation, just
And
knowing I
if
got
he's
it.
in middle school, he's going to have like 4 or 5 teachers or something. So it's important, particularly if the kid is anxious. We welcomed, like probably 20 new kids to the middle school and or my 3 to 5 school
Sure.
every year. And some kids adapt pretty well. Some kids are quite resilient and they can do it. But it's harder at that age because they've established friendships already and they may really miss their old friends. Now, we don't know about this kid. Maybe he doesn't have any friends. And maybe just building friendships is really hard. So I think if the parents can alert the either the school psychologist or the principal, these are interests that my son has. Can we try to connect him with other kids who might have, whether it's sport. That's another thing to do is extracurricular activities. So have this, if he's athletic or anything, that they could enroll him in to meet some new kids, because most kids really want to have friends. That's the big issue,
Well,
and
let's be honest. Isn't that the baseline for the human experience? You just want to you want to be loved. You just want to be
yeah,
loved.
yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
And those friends that you create, I've got friends that I've had for since I was in elementary school and even nursery school, and I'm still friends with them, and it
same.
it it makes a huge difference. So, if the kid's extremely anxious, then I would suggest that maybe they would want to, well, if he's still in school and they're not moving yet, work with the school psychologist in his current school, or if that's not enough time, then provide some outside therapy. So we don't know how
Mm,
extreme his fears and anxiety
sure.
are. We don't know how resilient he is. We don't know what his social skills are. So if those are evaluated and he's able, we don't know if he's even able to talk about all of this. If it's all about, oh, I'm going to miss my friends so much, or I'm really scared about this new school. There's ways to, or I don't want to leave my home. What's my new bedroom going to be like? They can. Kids. I've dealt with a lot of kids who've moved and something triggers a positive response. So,
And especially even a new experience. Even when I pick a new doctor, I've gone online, I've watched videos, I've done my research. I want to feel like I know them before I know them. So it's
yeah,
almost as
right.
if this is the same. And even that psychologist in his current school, if he's connected to that person, they can maybe make the introduction. Hey, listen, I know Mr. Jones at the XYZ school where you're going
Right.
to. He does what I do. Yeah.
I've dealt with that for sure. When kids move schools, and I've had conversations with the other school psychologist if I felt that the kid needed some support there.
Mm. It's bottom line is it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. Moving is hard. I mean, I looked at, there were kids whose parents were in the military, and they'd sometimes move every couple of years or something like that. And in a way, as hard as it is, it really gives kids the experience about how to adapt to a new situation. Well, that's why I say that like summer camp is good, because usually you go to summer camp and you're with people that you don't know. Maybe you know one person there, but it's an opportunity to expand your social skills and your friends and adapt to a new situation. And it's
Mm.
something we all have to do in life. You start a new job, you move. We all have to do that.
So I have another one here, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. This is Cindy in Rapid City, South Dakota. This is back to the occupation. She
Yeah.
says, I appreciate your talk about your field. Is a PhD in school psychology worth it?
Okay, that's a very good question too. One can be a school psychologist with a master's degree and an internship, which takes about 3 years. Um,
Hmm.
if you are interested in academic work, being a professor, um, and interested in research and and you want to learn how to read articles on the subjects that school psychology deals with, um, and learn and deal with statistics because school psychologists have to deal with state testing and that kind of stuff, and learn how to interpret tests. All of that
Hmm.
is very useful. Um, yeah, not everybody wants to, pursue a PhD. The other thing is, um, it helps with salary, because the higher the degree you have, and the more education you have, chances are you have more years of experience, and that increases your salary. But some people just aren't interested in the research part of it. They want to do the interactive part with students and work in the school. But the other thing that I would say is that there is so much to learn about the field of school psychology. I didn't think that 2 years was enough. I
Hmm.
really appreciated the 4.5, 5 year. Well, my last year was working and doing my dissertation, but um, there's so much to learn, and even just being a pure school psychologist, not a professor, but all of the academics that you need, you can accumulate more of that if you are getting a PhD.
Hmm.
So,
When we go to the intern portion, I didn't even know that existed in this field.
oh
So
yeah.
how does that look? If you, let's say that, a week in the life of a school psychology intern. What kind of things are you doing?
Well, you're working with a licensed school psychologist, and that person gradually assigns you your own kids to test,
Oh,
uh, meets with you at least an hour a week to go over things. Um, the intern can do counseling, can participate in groups. Like if you lead groups, the intern would keep you, be with you, and gradually they would learn how to respond to issues that come up in groups,
hmm.
and in individual counseling, working with, they'd be there with teachers. They'd learn how to accumulate data on kids, observe kids, everything that a school psychologist does, but they would be supervised. I've had I had an intern back in the mid aughts, 2005 and six, and he worked in the district for a few years, then went to San Francisco, and then he came back to the school district, and after I retired, he basically took over part of my job. But we worked together too. We worked at the middle. He's just at the middle school, but and I saw him develop, both his personality, his interactive skills, his knowledge. So interns, they don't always learn everything. Like I've mentioned before, it took me 25 years to say, oh, I really know what I'm doing now, but whether or not that's true. But, yeah, interns, they are supervised, and but they get to do all of the activities that a regular school psychologist does, but with either with the psychologist, or um, when they feel confident enough. Yeah, I think I can test this kid by myself. Let's go over the results afterwards. Or I think I can counsel this kid now.
Hmm.
Usually not in September, but maybe by after Christmas, or in the spring, they're much more independent.
So for you, what age or ages did you more enjoy working with? Or it kind of depended, or it didn't really depend. Was it middle school, elementary, high school? Was there, anyone that you preferred over the other age?
Well, it's an interesting question. I loved all of them, but the dialogue that I had with the older kids, probably from fourth or fifth grade on, I really liked. Um, and I didn't have the, sort of management problems like with seventh graders, the teachers might. So I loved working with the older kids because I spoke with them like adults. But the little kids, I'd get hugs from them and things like that. So,
Hmm.
when I needed to give up one of my schools because the population got too big, I gave up the kindergarten to second grade school. But I was able to, I enjoyed all of them actually. But I suppose it was the older ones that I could, probably interact with in a more adult, uh, conversational level.
Okay, well, it almost sounds like, and nothing wrong with younger kids, but they're just a different interaction where you feel like maybe you're more of a peer to them because they're older, if you
Yeah,
will,
right, right, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting. You mentioned salary a moment ago, and we've got a email from somebody asking kind of about that. That's Jesse. And Jesse says, I'm considering school psychology as an occupation. I checked the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it appears that the average salary as of 2023 was about $80,000. Does that seem accurate?
Yes, that is. In fact, I just happened to look that up myself,
Hmm.
and the range is from the mid 60s to the low 70s at the low end, and that depends on the state. Like, how much money the state has. I think Alabama was the lowest state. And then the upper range is can be from 120 to $130,000. But it depends on, that's why I was mentioning it. When I had a PhD, I got a bonus, or they give a bonus for masters and PhDs. There was more, more years. So the more you have worked, your salary goes up. Like when I started in 1976, I was getting $10,000 a year. That was all. And when I retired in 2023, I was getting about 120,000. So,
Wow. Well, that being said, how do they determine increases? Or, this is a union school district, correct?
yes.
So I guess it would come under the guise of the union contract?
Well, yes, and that's also an interesting question because many school psychologists are part of the union, and so their whatever the increase, the annual increase, 4%, 10%, whatever it is that the union is pushing for, that benefits the school psychologist. Um, but some school psychologists are considered as administrators, and so they're on a different. They do get more money because they're administrative. Another issue that came up for me back in 2000, the business manager asked me, "What percentage of time did I spend on special education?" And I didn't really know, and so, being rather obsessive compulsive, for one whole year, I jotted down every day how much time I spent on every single activity. And I made a list of about 125 different activities, including special ed. And and I did it for a whole year, from like 7 in the morning till 11 at night. Not that I worked at 11 till 11 o'clock every night. But so I kept track. It turned out I spent about a third of my work on just special ed, but then
Mm.
the rest on everything else. But it turned out that I was working 400 extra, or 300 or 400 extra hours a year. So it turned out that the administrative, I guess the superintendent said, well, we're going to pay you for 10 extra days, which was only like 80 extra hours, but they realized I was working more than I was being paid for, because you get paid for 180 days and well, plus like a teacher, um, you know, development days. So it's like 186 or something like that. And those are technically, 8-hour days or 7-hour days. So I got some extra money for another 20 some odd
Okay.
years.
And I guess we should throw in here, you get the summers off too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and holidays. I'm just saying.
Yeah, except for the fact that, not during the summer, but certainly during holidays and weekends and vacations, I would often be writing psych reports, because I mean, some school psychologists carve out time on their work day, just they shut their office door and they work on their reports. And there's nothing the matter with that, but I never did that. I wanted to do it at home. I didn't want to be, when I was at school, I wanted to be available for kids as much as possible. And, it was very rare that I mean, sometimes I'd have to write something, but most of the time I would do it for homework, and sometimes on weekends and sometimes during vacations,
So let's, just for better understanding of everything involved, these reports, would you do it for pretty much every student that you saw? And is it just, I don't want to say just, but it's a file in case you need to refer back to it, or somebody within the district needs to refer for whatever the reason might be. Is that what that is?
No, the only reports that you have to do are those that are special education referrals.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you have 60 days to complete the assessment and to complete the report and have what's called the IEP meeting, individual educational program for the student. So there's time limits on that, and that can be,
Mm.
there's pressure on that,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
because once the parents sign the permission for the assessment, you got to get on it, and then know that it may take a week or two to write the report. And I always wrote mine with the resource specialists, so we conferred, and I would write my report, she would write her report, and then I'd merge them, and we'd catch each other's typos and all that sort of stuff. But it was great to do that sort of work, with somebody else. But those are the reports that needed to be done. And then you also had to do not necessarily reports, but records for kids who had 504 plans. I don't know if you know what one of those is.
I've heard of it, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's um, a part of it's a section of the um, People with Disability Act that was, I think, started in 1975. So if you assess kids for like ADHD, yeah, you have to make a record of which documents why you are saying that this student needs a 504 plan. Okay. So there's enough outside documentation. And then when I was first starting, I would take notes on my counseling with each kid so that I would put that in their personal file. And so I had a record of that. I kind of stopped doing that, but many school psychologists, they keep a record of their interactions with kids so that they can refer to that. Um, so yeah,
Well,
so
I
those
think,
don't have to be formal. The reports have to be formal.
well, it's state sanctioned,
Yeah, federally mandated. Yeah.
right? Um, One thing I detect in you, Alan, is that you have an amazing memory. These are very finite details. Little Johnny's got a problem. He's getting bullied by, Mario. Then you got Sally over here, and her parents got divorced, and she's going through some. Every time we've talked, now, we don't get in deep into names, but the situations and scenarios seem to be etched in your mind. And there's so much to keep track of, and it can get emotional too, and
Yeah.
trying. But did you find that worked to your favor to be able to recall
Oh yeah.
scenarios, situations?
And I can't remember. I mean, over the years, over 48 years, I saw thousands of kids, so I didn't remember everybody, but the really intense ones, yes. But yeah, and when you work with kids, particularly during that year, I found that my memory was pretty good, So thank you for noticing
It's
that.
just in our conversations, like you have recall, and I would imagine that is such a wonderful power to have because now a year later, Jimmy comes walking through the door, and you can remember that situation. Um, what challenged you in all these years? What was your biggest challenge in working in this field and working with kids?
Well, I would say the biggest challenge with kids were the ones that were unmotivated or wouldn't talk. Um,
Mm,
Fortunately, there weren't a lot of those, but I did have to deal with kids who they weren't interested in school, they weren't interested in anything outside of school, particularly, and trying to get them motivated was a real challenge. And then occasionally, not very often, I could probably say on one hand, from all those years, kids that just didn't want to talk. And, I don't know if it was myself or that's just who they were, or they were afraid. Maybe they were afraid of their parents. So those were, the kind of technical challenges.
mm.
The other challenges were more of timing and that kind of thing. The pressure. Sometimes it felt like, oh, I've got so much to do. How am I ever going to do this? But all jobs can involve that kind of thing. So, and I managed to, I'm a pretty good uh, non-procrastinator. I mean, I used to when I was a kid. The first thing I didn't procrastinate on was my dissertation. I got it done. But, when I had work to do, I would do it. I wouldn't, and I would help kids with procrastination themselves, how to get them to. And of course, unfortunately, with video games and electronics, procrastination is much easier. Oh, I've got to play my game first and then I'll get busy. And that was another challenge, just helping people, in the last 10 years, dealing with the electronics and the addiction and I think dealing with social interactions over the last 10 years, whether it was due to COVID or electronics, I found that challenging as well. I mean, I felt I made progress with it. I had techniques to help kids communicate better, but that was challenging too. And I guess another challenging aspect, since you asked, was probably parents who had very serious kids with serious attention deficit disorders, and they didn't want to medicate them. Now, that wasn't always my, oh yeah, just medicate them. But, if I had enough experience diagnosing kids with ADHD, and if I really saw it, and just sometimes, in second or third grade, and I said, why don't you try medication? And it sometimes took till middle school when they were flunking. And with many kids, it was like flicking a switch. They went from D's and F's to A's and B's when they went on medication. So having parents who were, very reticent to even try that, and I thought it was necessary for the kids. So, difficult parents were challenging too. That wasn't the only thing parents could be difficult about, but
You're reading my mind again because I was going there. What about parents who you felt, trying to verbalize this the best way, that may have checked out or they just didn't put enough attention on a situation or you felt like you're not getting through to a parent? You almost want to take them, figuratively speaking here, and shake them. Do you realize you have a great kid here, but they need you to help them with this, but maybe the parents weren't, and I'm not judging anybody. Crazy schedules, a lot of people, 3 jobs, trying to make ends meet. But did you find, at some times that rubbed you in a very challenging way?
Absolutely. I mean, fortunately, there weren't very many, but I had, occasionally parents that, would get me mad. I wouldn't blow up at them or anything like that. I think once I did, but, a long time ago. But I felt like if I can form a compatible, trusting relationship with the parents over time, I might be able to persuade them. So I found that difficult in big meetings, because that's hard. But meeting parents just individually and, really having a heart-to-heart discussion about that, that helped. So I think that parents generally liked me a lot and got along with me and trusted me. But you're absolutely right. There were those occasional ones who, just they were angry with the system. They were angry with the administrators and the teachers and, overprotective of their kids, perhaps. But I didn't put myself down, for that. If I couldn't solve the problem, okay, I tried. And that's one thing that school psychologists, well, everybody, I think, has to, be kind to themselves. You try hard and you're not going to solve everything, so.
That's, what? Thank you for saying that, because we're problem solvers, especially I would imagine in your field. And
absolutely.
sometimes you can't. There's only so much you can do, and there are things out of your control.
Right, and that's why I love the teamwork, because we would talk about, if I had somebody else to talk about, whether it's another one of the psychologists in my district, or a teacher or special ed teacher or administrator, and we were really having trouble with, a family or something, brainstorming, often, you come up with, wow, I hadn't thought of that. Let's try that,
Mm.
and then you don't feel, that was another part of being a school psychologist. When you're a private therapist, I think you feel a tremendous amount of responsibility. Plus, you're getting paid for it. Not that I wasn't getting paid, but I was. But, you're getting that direct money from your client, and you feel all that much more obligated to cure them or improve them. And if you're not, you feel guilty about it. You feel all that responsibility. But in my job, I felt, kind of co-responsibility. We're all in this together. So if I didn't solve something, I didn't, I took a lot of responsibility, but I didn't feel like, oh, I don't
directly responsible. Because there's other things at play. There's other teachers. Yeah. There's, the school.
I would never say, cancel my salary or something.
Right. No, I see it. And and actually the first question we got, today from, actually a few writing on the occupation. And that was Rafer Hernandez was asking the difference between a therapist, private practice, and the school psychologist or therapist. Thank you for all the insight today. Learned a lot. See it in many different ways. And even thinking back, the challenges I had as a kid and how that connected with that school psychologist. By the way, I loved like Army men. I used to play with them then.
Yeah.
I remember drawing them parachuting down. And there's probably some psychological significance to that, which is way out of my wheelhouse. But that was what I remember, one of the things I did in talking to that school psychologist at that time. Yeah. Thank you for being here. All the insight. You really have. Our kids are so important. And
they are.
Yeah, they're going through so much. And it's people like you that make that easier, and also for the parents. Any questions in the future, if you want to reach out, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. Allan, thank you so much for being here today. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you for all those questions. I hope I was able to address all of them.
Yep, with detail. And for that, I thank you.
Good. Okay.
We'll catch up soon.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.